Hi, you guys. Welcome to our webinar 2020 Snowman. And thank you for being so amazing in allowing us to move up the session to Tuesday. We just sent the email yesterday. We apologize for the really short notice. We mentioned last week that we were not going to do Friday, but we didn't say exactly what day. So anyhow, thank you. Today is Tuesday, December 22nd. I have to say this in front of a calendar because I don't even know what time it is or what day it is. But we're thankful. We thought we were going to have a little bit of time before the webinar to do the Dog and Pony Show, in which we explain the conceptual inspiration behind the webinar. We did not have time because it just was, we were spinning, which I'm sure you can relate because it's really hard to get everything organized and ready. But I will quickly, I don't want to take much time from the webinar. I selected an image, and this time I made a different selection. And this will not be the last webinar of the year, but we thought it would be a good way to wrap up the year 2020. And really quickly, Jen, how are you, love?
Hey, I'm really great. I just wanted to send a quick shout out to early birthdays in our group. Tomorrow is Hanya's birthday and Chloe's birthday. So I just wanted to say happy early birthday, friends. And I hope that it's awesome. Our Capricorns.
Happy early birthday. That's awesome. Thank you so much for the reference. Yay. I didn't know that they both had the same birthday.
I know, isn't that special?
Yeah.
Chloe and Tanya actually share. I will always remember their birthday because they share it with my best friend Summer, and her birthday's tomorrow. And Chloe and Summer remind me so much of each other. So there's something about it. I don't know.
Cool. Well, happy. That's a great energy to start the session, I have to say. So thank you, Jen, for bringing that up. And yeah, birthday energy, whether it's before or after, especially in the day, obviously, it's always good energy, especially when there's so much craziness going on. So yeah, thanks, Jen. And so you will be, you are always amazing, but I'm just going to dump so much information on you today because I didn't have time to prep the Dog and Pony Show, and I have so many
Sure.
great references. So
Awesome. I'm here for it.
but the very first one, really quickly before we start, and you guys, if you have selected your image, go ahead and okay, here we go. Yeah, so this is an artist, Lauren MacIver. I think it's either MacIver, MacIver. I don't know because I just don't know the pronunciation, and who knows. But I had a catalog. I was trying to find the catalog yesterday in the house, and I couldn't find it. This image, I couldn't find the image on online. She was a painter from New York, and she is known for being the first woman represented in the Museum of Modern Art's permanence collection. Um, and I saw this, I didn't know that, but I saw this painting a while ago. And this is a scan from the catalog that I can find. But I just love this painting so much. I think I found it like maybe a couple of years ago or 3 years ago. And immediately when we thought of the snowman as a symbol or metaphor for 2020, I just remembered this beautiful image. If you have some time during or after the webinar, please Google her name, Lauren MacIver, MacIver. I don't know exactly the pronunciation, but her work is exquisite, amazing, beautiful. The color palette is incredible. And yeah, she took classes at the, what was it, the New York League. Um, I think it's the New York League. I forgot the full name. There was an academy in New York that was run by artists, and yeah, so she took classes there, and yeah, so the reason for, oops, I'm sorry, the reason for this assignment, this is the beginning, or what triggered the idea. I was just browsing art news and browsing ideas. I wasn't sure what we were going to do. We've had such great um, sessions this past few weeks, and it was really hard to find something meaningful and interesting. And I just came across this bag, designed to save snowman inside, and I just thought it was such a clever idea. Obviously, it's just a tongue in cheek. It's not a practical bag, but perhaps Jen, if you can find the link, because the bag had more photos, and the bag is a very fancy cooler, and it has a pocket inside where you can just save the carrots for your little snowman. So I thought this is just perfect. It's beautiful. I just put a description, and I consider this a piece of art because it's not really usable, but it's just really cute. And the article, the link, had a bunch of photos of the pocket for the carrot, and I just fell in love. And from here, I remember the painting, and then that's the start of everything. So I'm just gonna stop, but I'm really grateful that you guys joined. These are hilarious images, and this time what I did, instead of like picking one image, we selected all the images, and usually what I do is I try to find something that is not predictable. But I found like an online random number generator. And what I did was I just put the numbers from 1 to 23. I think there are 23 images. And I let the interwebs, the digital world, select the number for me. And this little guy got selected. And so that's what I'm gonna do. So this is gonna be a very good webinar or assignment to practice texture, to practice tonal colors, and let me see if I can. Yeah, perfect. As usual, it's going to be deceptively challenging, because anything that feels easy ultimately becomes a little bit more complicated. Last week's assignment with vegetables, fruits, and vegetables that are anthropomorphic was so good. The paintings are so amazing. We need to start like sharing. And by the way, I have some feedback that I have to give to some people. So maybe at the end of the session, I could just take an opportunity to do that if we have a little bit of extra time. But I'm using a 12 by 16 as usual. So my format is rectangular. It's oriented in a portrait orientation. It's 12 by 16, and these are the three criteria or elements or features that I mentioned when I talk about format first. So this is very important because depending on the format and the image that you choose, you may have to arrange things accordingly. So please make sure that whatever image you choose and whatever format you have at hand that you're going to use for your painting, you're going to have to make an effort to translate the subject into your format. What I do is I just print out a large image of the subject. So I have it side by side. It's a little bit, it facilitates the translation, obviously, always. And also, since I just don't only have an iPhone and I use it as a secondary camera, so I need to have something printed out. Otherwise, I cannot manage this two camera situation. But I explain my format, the support, or the painting support, which is different than the format. I'm using cotton paper, which is a paper that's designed for oil paint. It doesn't have the same it has less absorption than regular paper, and that's why it's better. So in regards of like challenging supports, if you use canvas board, that's the most challenging support because of the little tiny pockets of the canvas. You will need more paint to create more coverage. And I always find the raw or pre-gessoed canvas from the store, it gives me a lot of challenges. So I gesso the pre-gesso canvas a lot of times until the little pockets are gone, and usually takes 4 or 5 layers. But yeah, the best support is the canvas board. I mean, I'm sorry, the wood that it's gesso. That's amazing, but that's the support that I'm going to do. I'm using charcoal, and the first thing that I'm going to do is set up my parameters. So the image that I have, it's I called it a figure drawing or a figure painting because there is a figure. And in regards to what we did last week, this snowmen are anthropomorphic shapes made out of snow. So there is a link between this webinar and last week's webinar in the sense that we're using anthropomorphism as a basis. So the reason why I'm saying this is because there's a little bit more forgiveness in regards of proportions and relationship between elements. So it's a figure drawing, but with a lot of forgiving elements. Still, I am going to try to arrange this subject on my format in a way that gives enough room to wander around it, that it doesn't become too squeezed against the edges. Yes, these are ugly snowmen, and conceptually, this sort of like untidiness or ugliness is that what we're going for. But it's I'm talking in regards of like conceptual basis. In regards of the stylistic or aesthetic or hands-on painting, there's no difference between the complexity of this subject and a refined, realistic portrait. I'm gonna treat it the same way, just because it's like a bunch of like ugly, muddy things together. It doesn't mean I'm not gonna take it seriously. In fact, I'll probably, because I love to root for the underdog, I'll probably not only continue working on this, but um, try to finish this and include it in my portfolio, because there's something really special about the concept of this subject. So in my case, what I'm doing is I'm setting up the parameters, and the image, the arms are really close to the edge. So I'm just going to make sure that I have a little bit more space. And I think what I'm going to do after this is I'm going to just get my potato shape. What's a potato shape? The potato shape is a very loose silhouette shape that allows me to find out what kind of composition and arrangement within the format that I'm working on I need to have. Okay, so I work quickly. I don't use too much pressure on the paper, but the idea is that with what I call a potato shape, I'm able to quickly find out the relationship between the subject and the format and make adjustments before it's too late, or before, rather than using that expression, before I commit to something too much. So again, that's the scaffolding, and I use that because I don't want the edges to get too close. I always say that the edges become magnets and they pull elements really close to them. It's better, I'm going to just be upfront, it's better to consider that than to overlook it. As I say, or I've been saying in the past few sessions, try to learn the ropes before you break the rules. It's always good to understand the traditional approach before you make something different and your own. So the traditional orthodox approach is to avoid getting things too close to the edges, because perception wise, it stops the visual flow around it, and it creates visual noise. So I think that's okay. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to work the silhouette a little bit more. So one of the things that I loved about, I would say the past, maybe even the past two webinars, certainly last week, it's the fact that we talked about avoiding regular edges. Avoiding regular edges. And what does that mean? So because of the speed and the strokes that we do on our paintings, um, the edges of things tend to be very regular in the sense that they follow the same rhythm of curvature, or they're very symmetric from left to right. And sometimes that stifles the dynamic energy of the subject. For example, with fruits and vegetables last week, and it also happens with tree branches. If we make things too regular, it just looks so predictable. It just looks very stiff and rigid. And I invite you to consider breaking up those edges even further than you see on the photograph or the image reference. So try to just do small strokes on the potato shape, and make sure that that edge, it's really broken, it feels torn. So these are not perfect edges, obviously. So we're going for um, failed snowmen, or snowmen that are sloppily. I don't know if that exists, but they're sloppy, so they're built in a rush. I use the word rush in the description, just because I just feel like that's what we're going for. I didn't have time to write more about why this would be appropriate to wrap up the year, but I think it's pretty evident. Um, and I'm not even going to use, although I'm by bringing it up, technically I'm using it. Um, I'm not going to use the term, we made it, because some people haven't made it to the end of 2020, unfortunately. I know I'm just going to, I'm taking a really dark turn right now, but there were so many things that could be said about this subject. We barely made it, and this is what we look like at the end of the year. So I avoided that reference just because, as we know, hundreds of thousands of people have not made it to the end of the year. So um, I was very mindful of that aspect, and rather than applying it to a personal individual experience, this is mostly a metaphor for the year for us. So this is already looking better than I expected, and I'm fine with the time. I'm gonna take a little bit more time with the sketching, and once I have the silhouette, I think all of the images have some sort of like landscape featured. So have that in mind as well, because it's an opportunity to blend figure painting with a landscape subject. And in my case, it's wonderful. It's all black, which kind of like goes with the theme. I love some of the images because there are photos taken at nighttime, which really adds to the drama of the sloppy snowman. So anyhow, so always, or try to consider that as well, because it's not just a snowman. I don't want this to look too predictable. I think that's the word for me. Um, so incorporating part of, in fact, I'll probably spend more time with a landscape than I will with the snowman. But consider that as well when you sketch it, because the snowman is part of a context, a spatial context. And to me, the context in this painting is as important as the actual object. So I'm already shading. Shading is when I use the side of the charcoal and I try to articulate or deconstruct shadows and highlights of the subject. And perhaps I just rushed a little bit because before I do the shading, I go into the what I call structural lines. Structural lines are lines that divide and split up the subject into smaller areas. So once a silhouette allows me to find out how I want to arrange the object within the format that I've chosen. And by all means, stop now, step back if you can, if you're not sitting down, and um, reflect and think about that relationship between the lines that you've done so far and whatever format and size you've chosen, because 99% of the time we overlook that relationship and we end up making um, drawings of things that are way too small compared to the format, or they look off frame, and then we have empty spaces that we don't know how to resolve later. So that happens pretty much all the time. So then I'm just going to go to structural lines. So structural lines, I try to put the structural lines that are the uh, and by the way, Jen, if you can, go ahead and go to the Wikipedia article of SNOWMAN, because it blew my mind, and there's so many good references about the earliest. I think it was the 13th century, the earliest depiction of. You can go ahead and try to find it. The
Okay.
earliest depiction was in a book, and it shows the butt of the snowman actually.
Okay, awesome.
And so snowmen were, from what I read really quickly, um, they were the subjects of artists at the beginning. It wasn't a children's thing. Um, I think Frosty the Snowman changed that. But before that, there were some adult depictions of snowmen. And yeah, one of them, I think the snowman in the 13th century is pooping on a pot or something, but you can see the butt of the snowman, and it's really funny. Um, all right, so I'm just doing I'm doing the structural lines that I see first, the best of my ability, to the best of my ability. And I also learned, I mean, it just blew my mind. Jen, you're going to love this, but there's a snowman festival in Switzerland. Talk about like Christmas traditions that are so strange, including the one in Catalonia. So it's not a Christmas tradition. This happens at the end of winter, I think in April, early April. So in Zurich, actually, it's not even a weird town. Um, and I'm just going to say, I was watching the video, and I have a little bit of a relationship with Swiss culture. I'm just gonna say something stupid, but I'm just gonna start my dissertation by saying that if you have Swiss heritage in your blood, I apologize. I apologize for what I'm gonna say. In my experience, I think like Swiss people are a little nuts. There are a lot of like Swiss expats that make Spain their home. They leave Switzerland and they come to Spain. So it's not only in the summertime, but um, throughout the entire year. So we all know the nutty Swiss people that live in every single town and city, and especially in small towns, and they're remarkably different. So I was watching this, and it just made perfect sense. Switzerland, it's a gorgeous country full of nutty people, just like every other country in the world. What should I say? So forgive me if you're married to a Swiss or you have Swiss heritage, but they're nuts. So anyhow, so in Zurich, in April, so what they do is they put a replica of a snowman and on top of a pyre of twigs and logs, and they put dynamite inside of the snowman. And what they do is that they lit up the pyre, and you have the little snowman on top filled with dynamite. And then there are horses that kind of like run around the pyre as it burns. So the minute or the moment they just lit up the pyre, they start counting the time. And the thing is that the amount of time that the fire burns the pyre, gets to the snowman, and blows up the head. It has to be the head, not the body. So the head of the snowman has to blow up. So if it's a long time, then it's going to be a really bad summer. And if it's a short time, they're going to have wonderful, warm, clear sky, no rain summer. So that's a tradition. Obviously, this is completely random. So they canceled the Snowman Festival this year, 2021. I'm sorry, just because of COVID. So they're not going to do it. But you're welcome to Google, and Jen is just gonna love this. You're welcome to Google Snowman Festival in Zurich from 2019, and the thing lasted 38 minutes, which I think it was a record. The shortest was 4 minutes, and then the longest was last year. And it's amazing because it's freaking disturbing. It's disturbing that, and I just couldn't believe it. And then the body blows up, but it's still not enough. And then there's a point, and there's a bunch of like people, hundreds of people gather around it. And then when there's a reporter, and the reporter sort of like New Year's Eve, when the reporter, yeah, Claire, that's right, yeah, but really hardcore Terminator style, kind of like whatever that's pronounced. I'm sorry. Um, yeah. So the minute that the head explodes with a big bang, then they stop the clock and everyone cheers. And there were not many cheers this year because it was like 30 some minutes, and people thought that didn't sound very good. There's a technical explanation. Apparently, the amount of humidity in the air makes the fire go faster or slower. So if there's a lot of humidity at the beginning of April, which is the end of winter, or yeah, the beginning of the spring, so it means that the summer is just going to be very humid and with lots of rain and not very warm. So if you want, Jen, you can upload some images. You're gonna find photos of snowmen on fire, which is so nuts. And I love this kind of tradition. So I'm just gonna go back to this, and I'm gonna start shading the darker areas. So I just have to do the darkest dark first. So I'm using more pressure, and I have a lot of black on the background, so that's gonna be it. But the key in all of our subjects is that the snow, it's not going to be white all over. We're going to use probably a lot of white paint today. But the key is that we're going to have many shades of light gray. So that's why I love this subject so much from the point of view of the painter, just because it's going to encourage us to work with neutrals and work with very pale grays. So it's going to be very tonal, which means a lot of the colors that we're going to use are going to be within the same family. It's going to be very tonal, and it's going to be very high key. High key defines a painting that has a lot of pastel and pale colors. And it's very hard to come by a subject that has those two elements. But usually we use a lot of color, and the paintings become very dark as we work on them. So this will be a good challenge for us, good practice, see how we can refrain and restrain the application of too much color and too much darkness. So what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to add some of the grays. So in different clumps. Oh, and I also I found some depictions of Japanese snowmen in Japan. instead of building snowmen with three balls, which is I guess the standard in Western culture or whatever we should call that. But in Japan, they only use two and they don't put arms. So I just love to find out the difference between different civilizations, or yes, I'm going to use the word civilizations because in Japan, the snowman resembles a doll. I forgot the name of the doll that symbolizes good luck and good fortune. So the construction is different. And in fact, in Japan, not only they do snowmen, but they do rabbits, like snow rabbits. And there is, I think on the page, on the Wikipedia page, there is a very old Japanese painting with a family, and they are just putting the little tiny buttons on the rabbit. And I thought that was so cute and a little bit more civilized. But anyhow, so there's also a town in California that has a kind of like a tradition using representation of a snowman and a lot of lights. And I forgot the town, or uh, yeah. Oh, I'm so excited already. This is looking so fun. So excited. This is, yes, it's a metaphor and all that kind of like stuff, but I feel like this is my opportunity to actually do a snowman. Because, you know, I don't think I've ever built one. You guys are gonna have to share your memories later when we talk during the critique, because in Barcelona and also south of Barcelona where I grew up, there's no snow. So I don't think I've ever built a snowman in my life. So this feels like something close to that.
Leo, that makes me so sad. You've never built a snowman.
I know that sounded bad.
No, I mean, that makes sense, but oh, that's so sad.
Have you? You have, right?
Yeah, definitely. You know, it's so funny. I love snow. Winter's my favorite time of year. I just love snow and winter and all of it. But I grew up in Virginia where our climate is mild. You know, we get all four seasons, and we get snow, but it's mild. It's not like, the Northeast. And so my experience with snow is like no school and no one has to go to work and you eat everything in the house and you go to your grandma's house, like it's so fun. It's a vacation. But Carl's experience with snow growing up in Massachusetts is, it's a just part of your life. You dig your way out. You still have to do all the things. You have to live with it. It's 9 months out of the year. It's like crazy. So it's just interesting, everyone's different perspective of snow and and that time.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's amazing how we all have like different realities. I mean, it's like it reminds me of I mean, I know that sounds off, but people that have never seen the sea, and when they see it for the first time, and then some people live by the sea, and then it's something that's, oh, no big deal, whatever, salt stuff.
Right.
In fact, you'll find, I think on that Wikipedia page, you'll find snowmen made out of tumbleweeds in Arizona or Colorado or some.
I saw that. That's so funny. So good.
I think it's really cute. But yeah. All right, so yeah, I'm just kind of like working. I'm so happy. This makes me so happy already. So I'm working with shaded areas, and I'm happy that this is allowing me to focus on variations of shadows rather than concentrated on proportions or measurements or stuff like that. It's funny because 2 weeks ago we did crows and we thought crows, well, it's just going to be sort of like simple and easy. And boy, we just didn't know how complex to get the right shape of the crow was, because a slight change in the curvature of the outline of the crow turned the crow either into pigeon or a chicken. And we just had to go back and forth a million times to make sure it looked like a crow and not a pigeon or a chicken. So I'm so happy that we don't have to deal with that now, especially with this. And we can concentrate on other other things. But yeah, I'm just gonna go back to what I said. I'm gonna treat this with the same level of seriousness as any other painting subject, even though this is supposed to have like a really sloppy kind of like look. Um, I don't know. I just think that that's important. And yeah, so time wise, okay. So I'm just gonna stop because I feel like that's enough. Although this area right here, it feels very uh, Groundhog Day. I'm sorry, I just couldn't find the word before. My brain is so scattered, but it feels very, very disenfranchised, whatever that is pronounced. Yeah, I think so. So I need to bring some elements right here because I don't want things to be floating or sort of like weird spaces in my format that feel unattended or disregarded or not taken care of. So that's something or part of that seriousness that I was talking about in regard to the subject. So I just want, see, this kind of like blends or grounds the upward illusion of the snowman and then also the ground. So um, yeah, it's a good thing I did take care of the ground. Sometimes we go for the pretty things, and the ones that are not so pretty or interesting, we kind of like subconsciously leave them out. And those are important. Those are very important. Um, oh yeah, it just makes me. I could do this just with charcoal. It just makes me so happy. I think the nose. Um, there was something, another article that I found talking about this author that tried to find out references of the earliest snowman, and then he wrote a book actually called "A History of Snowmen," and it sounds really fascinating. But he talks about how the earliest visual, as I said, it was the 13th century, but he thinks that before that, obviously, humans have a passion or love to stack things up. And I just kind of hang on that sentence that we love to stack things up. So I think it's something inherently human. And probably it would be interesting to find out what kind of like stacking up has happened with early um, species of humans. So, and what was stacked up. But yeah, stacking up, it's um, inherently human. It makes me think of things that we do today that still gave us like thrill. Like um, I love Jenga, so that's so exciting. It's something stupid. I don't know, but it's so good. It's so good. So yeah, I'm sorry I'm going from one thing to the next, but that stacking up just makes that it's almost instinctive. It just makes so much sense. And how kids love to stack things up and make towers and things that are tall. And in, in that regard, I think the tallest snowman was made in Idaho, and there's a picture also somewhere, and it looks gigantic. So I'm ready for the wash. I don't want to take this too far away from being a sketch. A crock is something that feels like a draft because I could easily continue doing this and then have something so polished or so developed that then when I put the wash on top of it, it just feels like I'm ruining it. So I just have to balance and gauge how far I want to go and what do I want to accomplish with this sketch. And with this, the only thing I want to accomplish, or the two most important things that I want to accomplish, are number one, how I organize things in the format that I'm working on. So, composition, and that has a lot of elements, but we can group everything into composition, the relationship between what I put inside of the format and the format that I'm using. And number two, values, how I deconstruct and organize and scale the values that in an orderly manner from darker to lighter. Those are the two most important things that I want from this stage. Other than that, I'm just going to make myself up for a frustrating experience when I have like a drawing and then I just put wet stuff on it. So I'm just going to use the big brush right now, and I just want to really quickly, okay, all right, yeah, so I know that we have some people that signed up, but they're not here. So if you're watching these, Michaela and Alina, I think we have other, I'm gonna go really quickly, but the palette that I'm using two whites, titanium and zinc. You don't have to have zinc. Gray, and then two blacks, Payne's Gray and Van Dyke Brown. You don't have to have two blacks, but we recommend a substitute of black. Then we have our four browns right here, from darker to lighter. We like to organize our palette not only by neutrals, but also by value. And you notice that either that row or this one, it goes from darker to lighter. Raw umber, burnt sienna, yellow ochre, and ecru, aka titanium buff, and also the two light neutrals, periwinkle and salmon rose. We use Gamblin as a brand, so this is radiant blue and radiant red, I believe that's the name of the paint, but we like to name the color instead, just in case you're using a different brand. Two liquids, mineral spirits, to do the wash first and then to clean the brushes in between applications of color. And then the medium, we're using a synthetic medium mixed with poppy seed oil. Medium is a substance that it's a little bit more, has more viscosity than the mineral spirits, and it could be just oil, it could be just medium. I mean, it could be just like synthetic resin. We like to use a combination of poppy seed because it's like slow drying oil, and it keeps the uh, paint wet longer. Um, and then the synthetic oil, we use a non-toxic fluid from Gambling as well. So that's the palette. And then I'm just going to use, we recommend oil, unless you know what you're doing with acrylic, because by experience, we know that acrylic is more challenging than oil, and it just gives you a lower, I'm going to use that word, lower looking result. With oil, it, because of the blending and the opportunity to make adjustments, we feel it elevates the work. And we've seen this over the years that we've been hosting sessions. People that come in that have never touched oil, the paintings look better than with acrylic. So unless you know what you're doing with acrylic, we highly recommend oil. And if you're using acrylic, buy our retarder in order to have more time to manipulate the paint, because otherwise you're going to be putting layer over layer over layer, and things are going to look very flat, not very well blended, and it's much more complicated and difficult. It's counterintuitive because you think, oh, it's like water-based, so it must be easier. It's easy to apply paint, but it's much more difficult to elevate the look of a painting with acrylic. Much more difficult. So just have that in mind. That was rough, but anyhow. So Um, big brush, rough, meaning like a challenging or frank statement. I know some of you use acrylic, and that's totally fine. So I'm going to use Van Dyke Brown, and I'm going to start staining. So staining is the technical process of transitioning from dry to wet in a way that encourages or focuses on priming the surface and sealing the charcoal. So yeah, I'm using neutrals, and I'm continuing to use the premise darker to lighter because there's a reason why we use darker to lighter with charcoal. So the reason is to help us guide the order of our brushstrokes and maintain that value scale through this process. So it doesn't make any sense that you do darker to lighter with charcoal and then you just overlook that when you do the staining. Just follow that um, system that you put in place. We do darker to lighter not only to understand the direction of the light and how it affects different surfaces on the subject that we're representing or translating, but we also do this, yeah, to give us an order of how we're going to paint this. So I'm using darker to lighter, and then my brush strokes are broad, not very specific. They're flat. I tend to be very random with the brushstroke direction because I don't want any specific brushstroke at this point. I don't have too much paint because I want the layer to be lean. Traditionally with oil, the rule goes go from lean to oily. So start with very lean layers. Very lean means a lot of turpentine or mineral spirits, very little paint. So the surface has an opportunity to absorb the mineral spirits, to have very little oil. So it's much easier to overlap or layer things over this. So yeah, I think that works, and it's a smart way of applying the paint. Lean to oily. And I think I need to make some changes on the drawing. This is like too high. So I'm just gonna move this a little bit lower. And then I'm gonna put this super dark area here and super dark area there. Um, Another reference that I wanted to mention in the uh, Ruthless Dog and Punisher that didn't happen. There's an artist, I think he's still alive, and I forgot the name. I think the last name is Raymond. Oops, Raymond, something Raymond. And he is famous for many things. At the beginning, I didn't quite understand what the deal was, but I appreciate what he does. I think it was in the 70s or 80s. He is famous for selling snowballs on the streets of New York City, and there are images of him with different size of snowballs from this big to really tiny and perfectly organized. So Jen, if you want to find the reference, because um, yeah, he's a conceptual artist. Obviously, he's a conceptual artist, but I thought that
Could it
was
be Hammonds?
Hammonds. Yes,
Okay, Hammonds. Okay.
yes,
David Hammonds?
yeah, I think so.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. And I think yeah, we should know his work. I think he's still alive. And the Hauser and Wirth Gallery did a retrospective last year of his work that I didn't go see. I should have, but I didn't. Okay, I'm gonna use gray and a lot of turpentine. And then again, what I'll do is just block. This works, just block. If you want a color at this stage to be lighter, instead of using white, which I don't recommend, I would use more turpentine. And what I'm doing, if you notice, is just big chunks, color areas. So I'm not being specific and very mosaic-like. And the idea is just to allow the charcoal to inform me where the darker areas are, and then kind of like put um, those chunks. this is a good practice to start differentiating different values with your brush, because what I'm doing right now, it's just working in a very spotty, I think that could be a good word for this, way, which means that I'm not blending at all on the surface. I'm just making some paint and yeah, and just applying it. And Jen, another artist that I wanted to talk about, maybe when you have time. I know that there's a lot on your plate, but it's a British art. I think he's a British artist. I don't know, but at the Tate Modern in London a few years ago, in the middle of the summer, he brought, I don't know how he did it, or but he brought big chunks of ice from I think from the Antarctica or something. Oops, sorry. And he installed them in front of the museum, like huge, and he let him melt in front of everyone to see. And as gratuitous and superficial as this sounds, it was very powerful because he was able to really put climate change in front of people who don't believe or they don't think it exists. It was really, it's not a snowman, obviously, and it involves eyes, but it was a really powerful way of using art as a means to uh, explain something very well. So I think it took weeks for the melt to, I mean, for the ice to completely melt. And I always remember that installation because I really thought it was powerful. It was powerful. Um, I don't know the name of the artist and I don't know many details. I didn't have time to do any research today. I wanted to do the show early, but yeah, no time. But that was one of the references that I wanted to bring up. The ice, the chunks of ice in front of the Tate Modern. All right, so I'm just going to use a little bit more mineral spirits and barely any paint. And what I'll do is I'm just going to wet the rest. And you can use the rag as a means to remove some of the pigment. So I have like my mineral spirits, it's used. So it has a lot of sediment. That's okay. It's a good thing. But yeah, those three were my references. The painting from Loretta, or I forgot her name already, and the snowballs on the streets of New York City, and then the giant pieces of ice that were melting in front of the museum. It's like it was so timely, and it is still seeing those images. And I'm going to make a huge political connection here because unless something it's in front of our freaking faces, we don't believe it exists. So this was both a way of bringing something visually stunning and aesthetically so strong that you would associate art with it because the colors, the texture, and everything, with a very strong political statement. And sometimes art does that. Um, and this artist did it very well. Let me just tell you. Um, it's the same thing that I was thinking. I was reading an LA Times yesterday. I don't know. The articles are so grim regarding the numbers and what's coming. And so an anonymous doctor um, mentioned that something in regards of like he doesn't know what else to do to convince people that this is serious, except for installing 24/7 live cameras instead of inside of ICUs in hospital ICUs units, and just feed. what they go through every single day to everybody. And I am all for it. I hope someone does that because we need to see exactly. I know that there's a lot of privacy issues and nonsense like that, but I would just like change the law and make um, a 24/7 feet of an ICU um, nonstop. Um, and I'm just going to use a little bit more of the mineral spirits, but I'm just notice what's happening is that some of the charcoal, most of the charcoal, kind of like goes away. So we feel a little bit frustrated because we had something and now it's just we're losing it. And that's the reason why I mentioned, try not to overwork the sketch too much because then we're just going to feel frustrated. So there are different ways of approaching this step or this stage, by the way. Some painters prefer to do a wash entirely with some neutral tones. So they get through the priming of the paper already from the get-go, and then that's done. And then they sketch over it with wet paint. So I prefer sketching first because it allows me to make changes. I like to slow the process down. So for me, it works much better. But know that some artists, they just do the wash right away and then they sketch with a small brush. So they want to avoid this feeling of um, frustration that comes when you have a sketch and then you paint on top and you lose what you had. I don't think it's a bad thing actually. Okay, so time wise, are you joking? No way. Oh my gosh. What happened? Man. Okay. Is that right? Is that first hour like gone? Okay, that's.
Do you feel like that's a good news, Leo, or not?
I thought it was like barely half an hour, like 5 minutes ago. Oh,
Well, you're in a good spot. Yeah, you've done the
yeah.
stain.
I think so. I'm just going to rush with the first notes and I'm going to explain what those are. So once you have the wash, first notes is when you start applying a layer of paint over that has some coverage, which means that there's certain opacity. And what it does, it just generalizes an area with a single color. And I like to call it like the um, color field stage or mosaic stage. I don't blend anything. I just create mosaics or areas of color. And I'm just gonna do that right now with the medium brush. And okay, so just have a few brushes. Let me just get a medium brush, and then I'm just gonna use no turpentine right now. Um, and I'll use the medium. So I'll mix with the medium without any turpentine. And I'm gonna go darker to lighter. So even though I wanna do the face and I wanna rush through that, um, I'm gonna work on peripheral areas because for personally, I just think that working on peripheral areas gives me clarity and also makes the actual subject um, less. It gives me less of a chance to overwork it. So medium, and I think this is pretty straightforward. Yeah. So what I'm gonna do is a little bit of medium, not too much, because I want some opacity. And then what I'll do is I'll just block certain areas. The drawing doesn't really end when we put the charcoal down, because right now I am drawing. Um, so I'm just gonna, I'm creating edges as I go around um, this silhouette right here. I'm creating edges. So I'm just gonna do this really quickly and then I'm gonna jump into um, the head. So I'll explain what the first notes are going to be. Perhaps I'm just going to concentrate on this and then leave this heavily underdeveloped, um, just so we have time to go over things. Because ideally, we should be doing second notes right now. So I like to give myself an hour or 50 minutes to do the sketch and the first notes. Although I have to say that I love how Hania works in that sense, because she dedicates the 2 hours to drawing and doing a wash. And I think that's the right approach. I mean, unfortunately, um, it takes more time, but um, yeah, that's what we should do. We have it. Painting is a slow thing, and that's why it's so good for us. Um, it's not immediate. Yeah, so I'm just gonna do these darker areas. I mean, it's a bit of a stretch because obviously this what I'm gonna propose, it has nothing to do with the style that we're gonna follow. But Jen, if you can find the one of the most famous I think it was Monet. Monet did a snow. Snow was one of the favorite subjects of Impressionist painters. They absolutely loved um, snowy scenes because it allowed them to work with high key colors. So the reason why you see so many, it's just because it was such a great opportunity for outdoor painters to have completely radically different color palette. And Monet has a really there's a gate. I think there's a gate. It's really famous. So if you can bring it out, because we can just later observe the many variations of light and shadows. And by the way, the shadows on snow, they're very colorful. They're very colorful. They're purple and magenta and light blue. They're not gray. Um, so some of those painters love to explore the variations. Um, so I'm just gonna do this little thing right here, and then I'm just doing darker to lighter. And I love that already translating something that looks sloppy and quote unquote ugly. Um, it's just not the case. I just feel it's really beautiful. So I'm doing the stains. Um, so first, after I saw the little bag, the snowman bag, which I love, I was looking for images of snowmen, traditional images, and I thought, this is just too perfect. These are too clean and too not real. So my first attempt was before going down the rabbit hole of sloppy um, snowmen was just like regular images, and they look too pristine. Um, so I'm glad we're just using these ones. All right, so I just did my darks, and then I've been doing this recently, not a while ago, but one of the things that I learned over the course of months, really focusing on technique and really going deeper, is the fact that when I mix colors on the palette, I think I have something that matches the colors, but it could be it couldn't be further from the real thing or the thing that I'm actually seeing. So this was something that happened because we are doing studio time sessions and we go deeper into the paintings, and also because I've been able to go back to paintings that we did 5 months ago, 6 months ago, 8 months ago, and I realize when I go back to those paintings that my color palette, it's really washed out, and the colors are not varied enough. So I've been using this kind of like step during first notes, this painting hack or paint hack in which I get a piece of plastic, a cellophane. Yesterday I got some cellophane for wrapping stuff, and that works very well too. And the idea, I know that if you don't have it printed, it's not the same, but you could also use a little bit of a piece of paper, a small piece of paper, and I recommend that. Use a small piece of paper, paint a little color swatch, and then compare it right next to the screen. Because it's amazing how we think we got the color down, but in fact we haven't. So I like to study the color by applying things right on top. And in order to find analogous aspects of color, consider two things. Number one, always check the value first. We make colors that are either too light or too dark, and we overlook the quality of light of the paint that we make. We don't even think about it. We think in regards of color, and sometimes because we are desensitized of color, we make color that's very, very strong. So this is a great practice to really understand the color that we are actually looking at and finding out what it is composed of. So first thing that I'm going to do, I use gray, and it's too dark. So I'm going to use a substitute of white. I don't want to use white yet. And I think I got the value. So maybe I'll just have to use some white right now because that's a little bit cooler. So maybe some of the blue, some of the blue. And the blue already has white, so I think that's gonna, ooh, this is really good. I think so. A little bit cooler. So I was able to study the color by applying color swatches right on top of the actual image. And I don't do that every single time. These are a bunch of paintings already, not just one. But if I do it like generally with a few areas of color, then I know what kind of like composition my color mixture needs to have or should have. Um, and it really elevates the painting a lot. It's not just a simple variation of what I've got. It has a little bit more of a color temperature, and it just looks a little bit more elevated. So what I'm doing right now is switch the brush. I'm using a medium brush, and I'm just trying to um, create, and I'm going to focus on the head. And I'm working on first notes, by the way, just trying to bring some mosaic-like pieces. So it's not blended, and the only thing I want is to just get a few chunks that cover the wash. They just build like a nice foundation, and then I'll be ready for second notes. I follow darker to lighter. And another thing that I've learned over the course of these months is I have learned not to over blend on the surface. I do all my blending on the palette, and the only thing that I do on first notes, I get the color that I made on the palette, and I just place it as if it were a piece of a puzzle. I just place it and I lift my brush and I go back to the palette. If I need to make changes, but I don't drag this and up and down and make some kind of like strange things with it. So I just pixelate it. I think that could be the word. So now that I know that this has a little bit of ecru and a little bit of blue, it's not just the regular gray. Just making the paint and just apply it. It's going to be a lot of blending, but there's going to be a lot of like um, chopped up brush strokes to create the idea of texture. And I couldn't be happier with the choice of subject like snow, because that's going to really push us to work the value and the temperature of our paint. Oh, it's looking really cute, I think. So simplify, try to create some variations, blend on your palette, blend on your palette. Don't blend too much on the painting. And since I did the darks, I think I'm just gonna go to the lighter ones right now because there are some lighter tones. I'm just gonna bring those lighter notes. Uh, so I'm so happy we're doing this. I'm so happy. Last year it just felt right to do the Yule logs burning. Um, it was nice. It's winter time. Conceptually, we're far away from the terrible fires that affected us so much this year. So I have a little bit of a hesitation of painting fire because of what we've gone through. So I think it's a little bit out of touch. But last year, I just felt it was right because a lot of people have lost so much in the past 2 years, I would say, homes and stuff like that. So sometimes the subject matter could feel a little bit out of touch. Um, I love those paintings, but and I feel like we can share them now because we're a little bit far away from that summer. But I feel like this is such a great way to recap the year that we lived. And these paintings could be so meaningful to look at them the way I look at the logs now, for example. And I remember how we wrapped up last year. It was such a great time. We did so many paintings. Um, I drove by Flutter, Jan, the other day. Flutter is one of the spaces that we used to paint, and it's just completely shut. So
Oh.
yeah, and I got an email from what was the name? I forgot the name of the one of the managers that used to help us.
Um, Jerusalem?
No, it was someone else. Anyhow, I totally forgot, and I got the email recently. I'm so bad,
Hmm.
but I think they're planning to reopen in 2021 because they wanted to host some sort of like sessions. Um, so I was really happy. I
Well,
said,
that's awesome.
yeah.
Yay.
Um, but yeah, remember the Christmas party that we hosted with?
Yeah, I had forgotten about it until you posted the Yule log, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's right." Yeah,
Mhm.
we did Flutter's employee Christmas party, with company Christmas party, which was really fun. We had a really big group. It was a lot of people, and they had food, and it was really sweet. They're such a great group of people,
Yeah.
young people too.
So I wonder, I wonder how they are keeping up and stuff. So I just switched the brush from the old hairy, old hairy guy um, that goes works well to sort of like create mosaic like to a medium brush that's a little bit tighter and younger. And the reason is because I want to start creating some strokes. So perhaps this could be a good opportunity to introduce second notes, even though I still need to do a lot of first notes in the rest of the snowman. But what are second notes? So once you have these chunks, these puzzle pieces, these mosaic areas that are not over blended. In fact, they're not blended at all. I do all the blending on the palette. That's one of the biggest breakthroughs that we've had in the past 5 weeks, I would say, or 2 months. It's the fact that we understood that we completely overlooked the amount of blending that would happen on the painting. We would do blending on the palette and blending on the painting, and we would not think that that was a problem. But when you blend too much on the painting, then it becomes more difficult to create distinct areas of value. So I am slowly getting used to or picking up the habit of refraining or reducing, restraining the amount of blending that I do during second notes on here. I'm sorry, first notes, and then I just leave it for second notes. So second notes is when you focus on one area of the painting, one section, the head or the eye. And then what you do is you create more variations of value within that area. So instead of making like big chunks, so then you can start creating smaller variations of the same color family. Doesn't mean like we introduce new colors and then we go for it. And again, this doesn't mean like if you're not doing this, you're doing something wrong. It doesn't mean that. But I feel like it's important for me to say, learn the ropes or be familiar rather than learn the ropes, because I am learning the ropes every single time I paint. And proof to that is that 4 weeks ago, I didn't think of those things, of blending more here than there. So be familiar with the traditional ropes, and then you can break those rules and make your own or incorporate it to your own style. But I think it's important to at least experience, experiment, and be familiar with that, and then you can always completely break it. As we should, as the painting gets more complex and sophisticated, our style should receive all the attention, and that means breaking rules and in many departments. But anyhow, for now, I'm just going to mention that second notes is when you pick one area and you actually create more variations. And for that, I just have to remember the what I said about regularity. I don't want this to become excessively regular in my brushstrokes. So I am gonna try to break it up a little bit and create almost like pixelated areas that feel more irregular, literally more irregular. So that's why the old hairy guy, it's possibly not the best choice for brushstrokes right now. And getting something a little bit, I wouldn't say small, but a little bit tighter. So the size, it's not, I think it's the same size, but one is old and hairy, the other one, it's a little bit newer. So I'm not using a smaller brush, I'm using a brush that's newer and allows me to be a little bit more specific and blending. And now that I'm deep into this process, I feel I could spend days with this painting. It's just funny because sometimes the simpler the painting or the subject is, the more we realize that we want to do more things with it. And this, in fact, I think I I feel like I personally wasn't wrong. It's a very interesting subject in the sense that it allows me to create more variations. So I'm trying to slowly build the right side of the face um, with variations, actual variations. Because here, unless we are thoughtful, we're just going to do the whole thing one color. And that's the challenge here. The challenge is to see beyond that same material, because we will work by association. We will think, our brains rather will think, okay, this is made out of snow, let's paint it all white. I'm done with the painting. That's level zero. Level one is to understand that the light creates the illusion of a form, and that same material has so many qualities, or it's represented by so many qualities, texture, blending, light, highlights. So that would be level one. So we want to be on level one, which is understanding that because it's the same material, it doesn't mean it's all the same value and color. And I could not be happier having this subject to challenge us in that sense. Um, yeah, and I'm gonna try not to be too OCD in regards of how much detail I want, because I find myself right now being a little bit too OCD, as I said, and proving to myself that I can push this forward. Sometimes, in regards of my, and I apply this to myself. There's a sense of almost like pride, um, that I think comes from a combination of insecurity and narcissism. I feel like I'm obsessed with one area because I want to make sure I can stand behind it, and I'm able to recognize that that's not the best way to approach an area. I should let go of that ego part and take care of other stuff. And that's possibly what I'm doing right here. I'm just like, I'm being too fussy with this section right here. I'm being too fussy just because I want to prove that I can pull it off. When in fact, the way I should approach it, I should let the ego out of this and then do a few brushstrokes here and a few brushstrokes on the other eye. So always kind of like um, sharing equally the amount of work on one side and the other side and slowly build the definition on both. So I'm just gonna now work on that other side and try to um, bring up. Um, oh, what was the writer of fairy tales? Christian Andersen. What was his name, Jen? Hans?
Yeah, Hans Christian
Hans.
Andersen.
Yeah.
Yeah, or
He was.
Hands. Maybe it is Hands.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's what you just said. There's one of the fairy tales. It's the Snowman, and that's kind of like a. I'm going on a tangent here, like so bad that you guys. I hope you laugh. Um, so I didn't know that Hans Christian Andersen was gay.
Oh, me neither.
Well, he wrote this fairy tale, The Snowman. It's the love story of a snowman with a stove inside of a house. It's beautiful, and it's just like it's very interesting. So apparently, he was in real life. He was in love with this dancer, and he actually they had a relationship, and he said that it was the only uh, romantic relationship that he had that he ever felt happy about. Apparently, so yeah, that's all I wanted to say. I had no idea because it's um, sometimes with history, it's amazing how history gets rewritten either by omission in this case or completely editing history. But um, with Hans Christian Andersen, you only get to know certain things. The most famous fairy tales or whatever, the morals of the story. And it's amazing how sometimes, I mean, I'm just going to drop the hammer here, but how sometimes those kind of like fairy tales are used as indoctrination tools for children to do the right thing and blah, blah, blah. And obviously, I didn't expect when I was a child that someone would have told me, yep, he was in love with a dancer. And then that's why he wrote this love story between a snowman and a stove. It would have rocked my world then. And I would have thought that, oh, wow, this is amazing. So I just wanted to say that. Yeah, The Snowman. Read it, and it's beautiful. And if you have the backstory, and usually what I take from any love story that involves two things that are not the same, it's a story that it's universal. It doesn't have really anything to do with sexual orientation or gay or straight, whatever. But if you notice, the most powerful love stories in fiction are stories between two sides that are not supposed to be together. And that's why those stories speak to all of us. Um, anyhow, add that story, The Snowman, to that collection of romantic stories because you'll really love it. It's so beautiful and yeah. So, and I think that there's an illustration. There's an article on Wikipedia about the snowman, and I think there's an illustration from the 1800s. And obviously, it was not the most popular Hans Christian Andersen tale. I'm guessing for obvious reasons, because I don't know if people knew the backstory or not. But again, sometimes history is written by omission, and I'm guessing this was the case. Um, I don't know how I went there, but I just wanted to drop that. I hope it wasn't too bad of a tangent. Um, all right, so I'm just working on second notes. Oh, and I think I caught up a little bit. I'm working on second notes, trying to do variations. And I'm working on the mouth a little bit. So I just like stopped. I stopped my OCD approach on the eye, and I try to bring a few notes everywhere. So try not to over blend, even though we're doing second notes, and there's a little bit more blending. And how do you blend? So what I do is like my brush strokes are smaller, and what I do is I clean up the brush. Maybe use a different brush. Maybe use a small brush or another older brush. Old brushes with soft bristles that have been or they look open are great for blending. And then with a clean brush, what you do is you blush the edge, just the edge between the strokes. So what I'm doing right now, I applied like a few strokes with a harder brush. And right now I'm just blending, and notice how like now softer the transition from lighter to darker is. Um, so very gentle, and don't overwork this kind of like trick, because otherwise everything will look the same and almost too ornate. So just try to apply it when you see softer edges. Not everything has to be perfectly softer um, in regards of blending. And yeah, also it's amazing reading all this stuff about snowmen and um, preferences and stories, how much um, how much protagonism the symbol of the snowman has in Christmas. You know, it's just everywhere. It's just if you think about it, I mean, I know that's silly, but um, it's everywhere. It's just in wrapping paper. It's in decorations. It's in um, inflatable things that people put outside. It's like a really um, omnipresent symbol of the season, and we take it for granted. And that's why I love doing this, just because it allows me to kind of like study it a little bit and bring a different narrative to it. But yeah, I love using these concepts or these things that we take for granted that are so unpretentious, and turning them into subjects for paintings. Um, And also, if I may say, it's the most almost like non-religious. Last week we just went for something that it was non-religious, but there was a little bit of charge with that subject. But yeah, this is kind of sort of like, also universal, I would say. It's not attached to any morals or anything. Um, no, I'm going to say something so stupid, but no expectation of a white man giving us presents because we're good and not charcoal because we're bad. There's no pressure, there's no indoctrination. It's just a snowman. It's kind of nice, especially with the political year that we had. Maybe that's why we're doing it. We're so fatigued with everything having to have meaning and intention and reason. Just a snowman, man. That's it. So
Although, Julio, I just read an article
yes.
that snowmen were used in forms of protest.
Ooh.
Yeah, there's
Tell us.
Okay, well, let me find it. Hold on one second.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I posted it in our pictures, but I'll read to you guys.
Yeah, yeah,
Hold on one
yeah. That'd
second.
be interesting. Oh my gosh, fascinating. That was before the song, probably Frosty the Snowman.
Yeah, it was like Prussia.
Oh. Wow. As a protest, yeah. I want to try. I want to find out exactly how it was used. Hopefully, it wasn't something. You found it?
Yeah, okay, so the first thing I thought was funny is that in 1494, a prince known as Piero the Unfortunate commissioned the artist to build Michelangelo, to build a snowman in the Medici courtyard. Though very little is written about the work, one art critic from the time said it was astonishingly beautiful.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
Okay, so then the next strange fact. This website's terrible, so it just pops things up. Snow people, snow people have been used as acts of political protest. Though today's snowman has become a reliable holiday character for those wishing to remain secular and apolitical, literally what we just said, they weren't always used for such impartial purposes. In 1511, people in Brussels were miserable. On top of being poor and hungry, they were also dealing with, quote, the winter of death, where freezing temperatures lingered over the city for months. The government decided that a snowman festival would be perfect for raising spirits. And they were right, just probably not in the way they had hoped. Aspiring snow artists covered the city in pornographic snow sculptures as well as graphic caricatures of prominent citizens. The officials let them have their fun, hoping that the sculptures vanished in the spring and the people's angst would melt away too.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Um, so another fun thing, the first photograph of a snowman was taken by Mary Dillwyn in 1845, shortly after the camera was first invented. So the first photo of a snowman is probably one of the first photos of anything ever.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Isn't that cool? Okay, one more and then I'll
Yeah.
leave you guys
Yeah, no,
alone.
no, I love this stuff.
Okay, number 5. Snowmen have helped the French fight Prussia. As the King of Prussia sought to expand his territory by invading Paris in 1870, two French soldiers and artists revived spirits with act of snow sculpting. In the Bicetre fortress, they constructed, quote, the resistance, a snow woman sitting on a cannon, and, quote, the Republic, a stoic snow bust in a cap. The snow crafts weren't enough, though, and Prussia ultimately won the War of 1870. Some historians state that the grudge held by the people of France from this defeat helped drive the country's victory in World War I.
Wow.
miles, right?
Wow. Thanks, Jen. That was very interesting.
Sure.
Wow. So cool. Um, yeah, fascinating. I love all that stuff. Thanks so much. This makes it so much more interesting, actually. Um, yeah. So, okay, perfect. Um, and I'm just gonna mention what I'm doing right now, and then I just wanted to say something that it's so funny that you actually said that because the snow person, because I know that there is this not campaign, but language evolves constantly, and there's a drive or a campaign to make names a little bit more inclusive, like instead of saying postman, and I know that some city halls, they are adopting this terminology, or they're making changes in order to make this more inclusive, and it's something that we may take for granted, but it is important. So it's funny that you mentioned it, because I was thinking the same as I was researching. I said, it's I'm gonna find something in that regard, and I didn't. But the fact that you mention it, yeah, why we call it snowman and no snow person, which I think it's more appropriate. Anyhow, I'm glad that you mentioned the word. Um, and so what I'm doing right now is, because I'm observing a little bit more, I realize that some of my grays are very monotonous. They're very similar. It just looks like what it is out of a tube. So I'm detecting, my eye is now calibrating to the temperatures of the grays, because I'm spending more time observing one single area. And I'm detecting variations in the temperature of the color. So as I mentioned earlier, one thing, it's the value, darker and lighter, and it's more important when we apply color. But then after the value, we need to check in the temperature of that value, if it's warmer or colder, and possibly of any of the subjects that we use as on our paintings, using the light pink and the light blue would work perfectly for this subject, because it's not all gray. In fact, if you look at the image, I'm looking at the screen, and this is so neutral, this gray. I mean, obviously I didn't do the bottom, but this is so neutral, and there's so much pink on the actual grays, um, on this snowman right here. So what I'm doing right now is just doing that, just bringing the pink and the blue, creating some lavender notes, and then trying to make variations on the color without making the color too, because I put like too much here, making the color too predominant, or making it stand out too much, that takes over the different highs and lows of values, and also the shape. But I do try to, I am trying to create variations um, of that gray, because as it is right now, I just feel like it's too, um, yeah, it is too uniform. It's too uh, flat. It's not varied enough. It's just becomes now too, yeah, too flat. So that's what I'm trying to do. So I'm also starting to use some zinc white. Zinc white is a very transparent white. It's very soft, and it seems like it's not going to change much, but the slight variation of lighter areas with zinc white will create a much more almost like powdery surface on, um, yeah, on the painted areas. So definitely, yeah, so that's what I'm doing. So good from the perspective of painting. This is such a good assignment. So good that we're doing this. And yeah, I will definitely spend some time on this, um, just because it's so unusual that I find a lot of appeal to it. So, Yeah, that's what I'm doing. So, and possibly what I would say, so I'm going to recap and explain exactly what I'm doing. I'm doing second notes on this area. Um, in order to catch up with time, I overlooked this huge section. I didn't do first notes here. So this painting, this area right here, it's still the staining area. And I need to build it. And um, it's much better to go one chapter at a time. So I should have done first notes here also, because then it just pushes the painting forward altogether. But because I don't know what happened with the first hour, I just concentrated my uh, second note work just on the head, and possibly something that I should avoid, but I'm doing it, is just changing the color of the grays, and those are third notes. A third note is when you bring variations of temperature on your existing areas. So we never get to do it because, as it is, it's so much dealing with first notes. We barely have time for second notes, and we never have time for third notes. But this is a good example of what third notes would mean. It would mean to bring variations of the temperature of the color. I did not say we bring variations of color. I'm not changing the color. I am changing the temperature of the color. Those things could not be any more different. Changing the color means grabbing something that doesn't exist in this area and applying it over it. That means changing the color. Changing the temperature of the color means staying with the same color and slowly or gradually warming it up or making it cooler within the same color range. So those changes or those adjustments in temperature are what's called third notes, and they usually come after the second notes help us build the illusion of form and light direction and everything else on the painting. So there you go. And we have time. I don't know what happened. The first hour just flew. It's just so fascinating. And now I feel like it's slowing. So I'm going to bring some of the um, zinc white because this area it's a little bit too dark, and I want to lighten it up without making a mess here. So the zinc white helps me to soften it and without making a huge mess. And I think that's it. Yeah. So a few notes here. Um, I'm gonna blend this, and I feel like this needs to be a little bit more blended. So let me just grab my um, old and hairy guy, and then kind of like blend this area a little bit. Okay, I think that's okay. So a lot of color here. I don't want to over blend because this is supposed to be um, rough looking. So if we make it too, if we over blend, it's just gonna look like um, uh, um, inflatable. It's not gonna look like um, snow. So my suggestion: try to practice variations on the value before you drive or you take the subject to the inflatable territory, which is not going to be bad or wrong. But first, try to experiment how to blend or how to blend by making more of a pointillistic application of highs and lows almost, and see what that creates. And then you can always later you can always take it to whatever territory you want to. But I just feel like sometimes we make things um, because we haven't compromised and we don't want to compromise. We we kind of like find our own solutions. So we cannot do this. All right, well, I'm just gonna make up the Firestone Man instead, and that's gonna be my painting. So I'm not arguing that that's wrong, but I'm just pushing for us to um, um, let us get challenged by the difficulty first before we come up with our own solution. Okay, I think that's good. And there's a little bit of lightness on top. So this is the fun part for me. I love to get into the details and finding variations. Um, so possibly right now, I should not be doing this, but I am because I love it. And how much of this, I mean, obviously I'm going into Freudian territory, but how much of this is almost like a personal self-portrait in a way? It obviously it's not, but why not? I think every painting could be a self-portrait. At least that's what I think. This is attributed to Picasso, but who knows who said it? Yeah, every painting is a self-portrait. But yeah, the more I recalibrate my eyes, the more variations I see. So for example, below the kind of like beard, it just looked like all the same, but it's not. So I think what I'm gonna do right now, I'm gonna spend the next 10 minutes, 10, 15, we're gonna extend it a little bit beyond um, the second hour just because we did a little bit of intro, but I need to work on the landscape. I think the landscape needs a lot of help, and especially because things are getting um, grouped together on this area, and it kind of like looks like uh, this is the ear of the subject. So, and it's not. So I'm just gonna work with things on the background and try to create variations there, separations. Um, and I'm using, again, the advantage of this subject is that it's very forgiving. We don't have to be exact in regards of like the shape. The challenge is that it's all the same material, but with different qualities. So I love that that I could be more forgiving with edges and stuff, but then it's very demanding in the sense of the quality of the material. So keep your brushstrokes short. Um, Try to avoid blending too much on the painting surface. See how much variation you get. Okay, I think that's good. And I need to bring some of the snow on the background forward. I'm realizing that I can see the distinction of shapes a little bit better. And I'm going to do it right this time. I'm not going to concentrate only on one area of the landscape. I'm going to try to um, flicker or flip between the left and the right. So I can build both areas at the same time. And I think that's very important because otherwise we start creating segregated areas in which some become much more well resolved than others. And it's natural, we get tired, and then the level of development changes. But yeah, the few strokes that I did, I'm happy with those. So I'm just going to continue. And I'm going to focus exclusively right now on the background because I think that's gonna elevate the look of the painting. So I'm just gonna also, gonna concentrate on closing gaps. Um, I still have some charcoal showing. There's some area right here that I'm gonna um, work. Okay, and then some on the background. So I'm slowly finding out more variations on the shape that I had no idea. And that's the power of observation. We start making more sense of things. Ooh, and there's a little bit of blue on the background. So yeah, again, variations of um, temperature. That I would say that's kind of like second notes, what I'm doing right now. All right, so uh, and then some faded area. Gonna bring some zinc white. Zinc white is an excellent color to blend without creating a whiteout effect. So this could be, yep, zinc white works really well. There's a transition between the snow and the foliage. And that transition, unless we work that transition, it's just gonna look so abrupt that's gonna flatten the look. So what I'm doing right now is bringing some zinc white and applying it in an area that looks like it's within the first plans, um, separating the clear from the background. And that zinc white is helping me create, it's hard to see, but I'll just take a picture later. It helps me create the idea of the snow transitioning um, and getting hidden behind the first areas of dry foliage. And it's working really well. In that sense, it's working really well. I'm just gonna bring some elements on front. That's very good. I'm using Van Dyke Brown to bring a little bit of detail. And I'm gonna work on some of the, on this area, for example, I just used um, some zinc white, but I think I need a little bit of titanium to make this slightly stronger. So again, it's not flat. It's not flat. It has a different quality. Same thing. Just gonna bring this tone a little bit lighter. And I'm gonna use the zinc white that I used before on the other side. And that's why it's a good idea to flip back and forth. Because I wanna bring, oops, I wanna bring a certain variation. Okay, here we go. A certain variation between the background and that piece of like melted snow. Irregularities. So look at the edges. Do you find like there's a lot of regularity in your edges? So try to break it up a little bit. So I'm sticking to that. One of the things that I also like about the images that we selected, it's the fact that some of the stock images had perfect accessories, perfect scarf and perfect hat. These are like, you know, very shabby. So there's something really whimsical and charming also about that thriftiness. They don't have fancy accessories, it's just barely put together. This one doesn't even have a carrot. Just they make this. Um, yeah, this image. I detect some warmth here, so I'm just gonna bring burnt sienna and a little bit of ecru to lighten it up. So notice that this area in the background, it's slowly getting more developed and it's helping the head. So sometimes working on peripheral areas that we may feel that are not important because they're not center stage or they're not the actual subject, they will help the painting. And in that sense, I am going to, for the first time, I thought I was going to use much more white. Well, obviously, I didn't do this the first notes, but I just ran out of like Van Dyke Brown. How about that? Use more Van Dyke Brown. It's just amazing because we discovered Van Dyke Brown and we thought it was going to be an exotic color at the beginning. And now it's part of the staple palette. We use it all the time. Um, yeah. So, so I'm just going to bring more Van Dyke Brown. And try to darken that area because I feel like there's something about the contrast that's really wonderful of the black and the snow. So yeah, I'm just gonna darken that time wise. Yeah, so a few minutes before. Again, we'll just do 5 more minutes um, just to catch up with the few minutes that we took in the introduction. Um, and I'm just gonna try to darken that because I feel like that's gonna be important. Let me just bring the old and hairy guy because I really want to cover this with a much more opaque version. And so one of the things when I research about inspiration and conceptual um, reasons or things that make the subject more interesting is try to find short writings related to the subject. And I have a few websites that compiled poetry, and it's sort of like a database or aggregate, whatever that's called, of poems. So yeah, for some reason I use the word bruised because I feel like all this, if there's something in common about this snowman, is that I feel they're bruised, there's mud on the snow and they're just gray. It's not perfect. And I just did a search with the word bruised, and um, actually the poems were pretty hardcore in that sense. So I didn't want to go there, but um, yeah, that's a dark room in um, the conceptual reasoning behind the homeless. I mean the homeless. I'm sorry, that was my subconscious behind the snowman. But know that um, the room is there to explore the association between the bruising and yeah abuse. So I think it's a little bit too dramatic in the sense of what we intended to do with the snowman, but I think it's interesting um, in that sense. And for me, actually, it was good to read it because I feel like the bruising of the skin, it's almost associated um, with one gender. Let me just put it this way. So it was really good to read poems about um, experiences and looks and about bruising. So that was the rabbit hole that I went down yesterday. Okay, so some of this foliage here, I think that's good. And I also like that the snow, it's not pristine. I think for me, that's something that stands out. So I'm just going to bring some of that. For me, it's very important. Um, Residue, leftover, something blemishes on the snow. So funny how those words could be applied to our own skin. It's interesting. We go from snow to skin. And I'm continuing. There's nothing new in regards of like. Let me just go back to the technical aspect because ultimately that's what we're doing. But there's nothing new that I'm adding. I'm just the only thing I'm doing right here is deciding which areas I'm going to work on and applying the same process to those areas. So let's say I've been working on the background. So I'm working on the edge, on values. I'm doing second notes. I did third notes by adding a little bit more warmth that I detected on that area. But the bottom line is that I'm working by location, and once I tackle a location in regards of like this specific painting, I would probably just build like first nodes on the whole area. I think I should build first nodes on the whole area and then work by location, doing the same work that I did on the face and on the background and on the landscape. So I'm really looking forward to working more on this and creating something surprising and a combination of untidiness and ugliness, quote unquote, between quotes, I guess, or quoted, because I don't think this is ugly, but just the opposite. And yeah, as a subject. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna take a break in a minute, and we're gonna take a 10-minute break because we need to stretch. We need to step away from the painting and look at it from a distance, take a photo of the painting, upload it in the folder. At 1:15, we'll reconvene and share the stages that we're at. All the paintings are work in progress. I don't think I would consider anything finished at this point. So whether you just laid one line or you kind of like put a bunch of like mineral spirits and everything is dripping down, it doesn't matter. If you share it, I'll be able to provide ideas about or suggestions rather on elements to consider to move the painting forward. And it's always helpful. It helps everyone, and you're not obligated, obviously, if you just feel like you can't. But um, yes, if you do it, you'll help everybody. So upload in 10 minutes at 1:15, we'll reconvene and then we'll open the microphones and we can start doing feedback until the final third hour. So it'll be 45 minutes of feedback. All right. So we'll see you in 10 minutes. And thank you guys so much. And we're back. And I think, yeah, I just resumed the recording. And let me just also, now you guys are able to unmute yourselves. I just had a little peek at the folder. The first thing that I'm going to say is, Jen, this is why you're so amazing. Thank you so much for adding all the images. I'm so excited to share everything. And thank you.
Of course, my pleasure.
So really quickly, and yeah, you guys have seen some of the images already, but these are the new ones. That's the ritual in Zurich, which is terrifying. And you've got to watch the video, you guys. I think there are 2 or 3 videos. And it's terrifying. It feels like a public execution of some sorts. I'm pretty sure that it's amazing and and all that stuff, but it's terrifying. Yeah, it's Swiss people, and I'm sorry I'm being xenophobic right now, but yeah, that's the explosion of the head for you. So it's not just the dynamite in the body, but the explosion of the head. I mean, come on. This is an example of a tradition in Japanese culture of doing not only snowmen, but snow rabbits. And I just think it's adorable. Thanks, Jen, for that. Let me see. I'm sorry. I know that you put comments as well. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm not going to go over this, but thanks for just putting the images. But I invite everyone to read the comments that Jen put because it's just, yeah. So, anyhow, it's just really good. And this is an example of a typical Japanese snowman that only built with two balls instead. And because of the resemblance of the Daruma doll, considered in uh, Japanese tradition, the Daruma doll, from what I read in another article, it's a symbol of good luck. So yeah, no arms, no carrots. So I love that. And this, I don't know if you can, I cannot. Oh yeah, I can, I can. Look, you guys, the little rabbit, the snow rabbit, being painted. I first, I couldn't recognize the rabbit, but I looked close and yeah, so, and this, I don't think, do we have info? No. Anyhow, I don't know how old this painting or print, I think it's a painting, yeah, it is. But it's exquisite. Look at this color palette. Look at the incorporation of architecture in this scene, and the way nature and architecture are presented as the backdrop of this incredibly gorgeous color palette. And let's talking about a line of beauty that I talked in my email this weekend. And look at this cascading serpentine edges of um, the fabric. And these are, it looks like they're two female figures, correct? Yeah, so I just love everything about this painting, everything. So thanks for uploading it. And oh yeah, yuki cone, after the Japanese word for snow, involves building a small cone shaped structure from snowballs illuminated from the inside with a tea light. How adorable is this?
It's
Amazing.
so
Thanks.
cute. It looks like little
Right?
marshmallows. Yeah. So
And
cute.
I love what you added after that.
Oh my gosh. Isn't that hysterical? So that article is hilarious and it
Oh yeah?
shows you all the different all the different things that Tokyo did with their snow. And that they're incredible. But yeah, I mean it's the perfect comparison. Ay, ay,
Oh, it's
ay.
so funny. I think it's hilarious. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, I'll open the link later. But
Yeah,
yeah, and this is a tumbleweed. Yeah, how cute is that?
super cute.
So cute. What a great idea also to incorporate a different material instead. But thanks for sharing and for adding it. So adorable. So the tallest one, 122 feet. Yeah, that's amazing.
I love that she's female too.
Ooh, you're right. Yeah, look at those eyelashes. That's
Yeah.
pretty awesome.
One article I read said it was a statement on feminism, but I'm not sure if it's
Oh,
true.
wow. And the trees. I mean, that's kind of bonkers,
I know.
but poor trees.
I know.
Sorry. Yeah. That is. Sorry. David.
David
David
Hammonds.
Hammons.
Yeah.
Did you read anything about this work?
I didn't. Although I did take a peek at some of his other work, pictures of him um, like peeing on the streets of New York, called "Pissed Off."
Wow.
So he's still alive.
He's still alive. And
Mm-hmm.
that's him, by the way, you guys.
That's
This
him.
is David Hammonds, and he's famous for this Yeah, Blizzard Ball Sale. I want to find out more about the conceptual basis and everything because he really pokes at very controversial issues with his conceptual um, yeah performances or presentations. I know that at the Hauser and Wirth, he installed a lot of tents inside of one of the galleries.
Mm.
And at first, I was almost like offended because, I thought he was making fun of homelessness and
Mm.
stuff like that. But in fact, it was the opposite. It was just um, he was making fun of the gallery, in a
Mm-hmm.
way, just bringing
Yeah.
that world inside of the gallery and how things inside of a space automatically they supposedly change meaning. And so anyhow, I can wait to read exactly what, and this is him as well, what's the basis for this. But thanks for uploading. This was amazing. um, yeah, 24 ice blocks are melting in London to highlight climate change. 24 melting iceberg pieces. Iceberg, that's the word I was in a blank. Have been placed in front of the Tate Modern Museum in London, the latest work of Scandinavian artist Olafur Eliasson. Eliasson partnered with geologist, oh, I didn't know that, Monique Rosing, for the Ice Watch installation. This is as visually stunning as it is strongly political.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, thanks for putting the link because I can't wait to read more about how they transport it or whatever and how long they were there for. But it's pretty remarkable, I think. Um, yeah, the Monet, right? Was it? Yeah.
Yes. Sorry about the arrows, but it was the best resolution I could get.
Oh, no, that's okay. The arrows, what do you mean?
See
Oh,
how
I see, I
there's,
see.
yeah.
Yeah. The magpie.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
it's so
Oh,
cool.
because of the bird. I didn't even
Yeah.
notice.
Okay, I love this
Cute.
even more. I didn't know that was a title, but how about the black
Yeah.
bird in the snow? Um,
So great.
oh my gosh, 1868, and this is a um, every documentary that I've watched of Monet, they just put they bring this up, this painting, and I don't know, just thought that it was a good example to talk about the color of the snow and how much the impressionists they loved to paint these scenes because of the color of the shadows. Look at this light purple or violet color on the shadow. It's just beautiful. And also the color on the canopy of the tree. The light is amazing here. So thanks for sharing that. First photograph, Mary Dillwyn, 1845.
And then
Wow.
that's the link of the things that I read you guys,
Okay.
of the interesting things about snowmen.
Oh, cool. Okay. Awesome. Thanks for that link. And it looks like an interesting website, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, they got something wrong. They said that the tallest snowman or snowwoman was in Bethesda, Michigan, not Maine. So I think they thought because Maine is ME. Um, so I don't know if they just got the initials wrong. I don't know
Ooh,
what happened, but anyway. So then I was skeptical to believe anything, but everything else kind of felt right. So
okay. Cool. Yeah, love this image. And thanks for sharing the reference. And in Wikipedia, the name of the photographer is not featured. So I'm so glad that you actually, I think it's not featured. I'm not sure. Maybe it is, and I didn't read it. But I'm glad that you brought the name and the year. Um, so thanks, Jen.
sure.
Remarkable. And yay, the first ever snowman discovered on paper, I guess, or on a support. How cool is that with a butt? I think it's so cute. uncovered by Bob Eckstein for his book, The History of the Snowman. The earliest known depiction of a snowman sits in a manuscript of the Book of Hours from 1380, 14th century. I said 13th century, but it's 14th century. Um, yeah, I just love this illustration. I think it's adorable and so cute. And yeah, that book looks interesting. And this is Hans. Oh, Hans Christian Andersen, and then this portrait was taken by the dancer. Uh,
Oh, was it? I just snapped it, but you know what? I
I
think
don't
you're
know.
right. Maybe.
Um,
And then that's the plot, the big thing that I put in there in case
right.
people
Yeah, I think
wanted
that's
to
the
go
plot.
into the
Okay.
wiki.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Anyhow, so thanks so much because I think, and that's the illustration for
Mm-hmm.
the tail, 1870. And I love the actual shape of the snowman here.
Almost looks
So
like a ghost.
yeah, yeah, it's very interesting. But thanks for adding that illustration to the actual tail. Okay, Lois, this is freaking spectacular. Let me just put this back. Oh, what happened? Where did I? Oh, did we lose it? Lois, did you? Oh no, no, it's here. Um, how cool is this, Lois? I don't know if you're here or not, but I just love this painting. I think it's incredible.
It looks like
Um,
she's not here yet,
okay,
Julio.
I'll just
Um,
wait. But
okay, the people that
this,
you have right now are Claire, Hanya, and Kathy.
okay, so let me just go to Hania. Let me just refresh this, and I'll start with you, Hania. If you have anything, just because I know that you're in the UK, and
Oh, and she
probably
might have
very
sent it
late.
to me.
Okay,
Let me
perfect. Thank you so
look.
much. Oh, good choice. Um, Thanks for choosing this. Thanks, yeah, because I just thought that this was an interesting photograph, an interesting image, and I thought no one would choose it just because the quality of the image is a little bit blurry, but I just think like it's really good. And thanks also for choosing the fact that it's nighttime also, because I think that gives this added sense of eeriness. And what you did is just spectacular. I think composition wise, it looks really good. And I love the beginning stages. Color palette is excellent. Just consider that dark background because I just think like it's really good in regards of contrast and framing the figure. So it looks really good. It's a really great addition to your amazing work, Hania.
Thank you. Hello.
Yeah, and happy early birthday, by the
Oh,
way.
oh, oh gosh, yes, another one.
Oh,
And there's very little we can do because we're really on lockdown, as you know. It's
yeah.
really not
Right.
cool here at the moment. But we'll walk somewhere tomorrow
Are
together.
you guys are you any news about vaccination or something? Are you or
We won't probably get vaccinated for another 20 years, but you know, it really I'm not over keen on it right now.
okay. Okay.
You know,
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
I feel like very insecure.
Right.
No one seems to really know if it works, if it doesn't work, and it's all new. So
Oh
I'll
wow.
let everybody else go first.
Okay. I'm just saying this because I'm watching the news in Europe and I know that the UK it's the only country in
We
Europe that's doing
completely,
that.
yeah, we're locked up. We're actually out of bounds everywhere now.
Right.
We don't move.
Because of
We
the new
can't.
strain, right,
Oh, it's
Hanya?
yeah. And
Yeah.
I went to the post office tonight to send cards to you guys and all over, you know, the world that we have befriended sailing, as you know,
Uh-huh.
and we can't send any mail out either. Not even to
Really?
Europe, not to Portugal, not to anywhere. They
No
won't.
way.
No. We're on complete lockdown. So therefore, all our Christmas mail will probably get there whenever.
Oh
Yeah,
my gosh.
it's incredible. Yeah, I was completely. I was so shocked, you know.
Right.
But you can't. We can't send a letter, even to Europe now.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
That's like
yeah.
major because you would think like they would restrict movements, although It's so silly. I'm sorry to take time, but it's so silly because this strain that they supposedly discovered, I
Mm.
think I've heard that it came from Amsterdam or something, or it's in Austria, and
Yeah.
I can tell you that it's been here for months. So
It's crazy because they're really not sure whether it's not a strain, but it's the people that it's the way people are active at the moment, and because it's Christmas and people have gone overboard and the colleges have gone, and so therefore I think everybody has to go on complete lockdown, and none of this tier 1 to tier 2,
I know
because
that.
we all go over, I do know a lot of people that were going from A to B, and that shouldn't be, so they're spreading it, they
Right,
can't close down the borders on account. It's
right.
impossible,
Yeah,
so anyway, it's Christmas shortly, and we'll make the most of it.
right. Yeah. No. Yeah. Thanks for
you
sharing all
know
that because
oh,
we
no
get
worries.
yeah, we get some information. But yeah, beautiful painting. If you can add like I'm sure you will, but I would say consider it just to see how you feel. I love that it's sort of like bluish, almost looks like Prussian blue. So
It is.
I
It is.
oh,
Yeah.
perfect. So I think there's
Yeah.
something really interesting about that dark depth. It makes the figure look much more lonely. It reminds me of that exquisite painting you did of the um, oh, what's the word of the flower, the red flower, the
Oh, yeah.
geranium.
Yeah.
Oh,
Geranium.
that that was so beautiful in a pot. That painting
Mm,
I came across the other day, and it's fantastic.
thank you. I
So
still have it.
consider sort of like isolating that background, or rather isolating the figure, but
Mm,
it just looks amazing. Hanya, it
thank
looks
you.
amazing.
Thank you. I know the contrast has to. I'm building up on it slowly, and it
Okay,
has to go. It certainly does have to go darker.
it's
For sure.
an incredible painting. I'm so happy you joined and that you did it because it's remarkable. It's very
Thank
unique.
you. Thank you. And I'm glad to be here tonight.
Oh, thanks, Anya.
It's lovely to see you guys. Honestly,
Oh,
we've had this issue with everything going on and everything else. So it's nice to relax and
right.
a pre-birthday painting.
Yeah. Well, we're sending tons of love to you, and I hope tomorrow you can do at least something special, even with the restrictions. Just eat
Oh,
something fantastic, or I don't
yes,
know.
we will. Fish and chips outdoors on the coast, on the coastal walk. That's what we're hoping to do.
Okay. Well, enjoy
Okay.
tomorrow.
Thank you.
Sounds awesome. Bye, Hanya. Thank you.
Bye. Bye, darling. See you soon.
Okay.
Ciao.
Right. Um, awesome. And then
Oh,
Claire, oh
Lois.
my gosh. Um, this is so fantastic. Are you here?
I'm here.
Yay! Oh my goodness. So
How
this is
I'm
like a
feeling, Julio. This is definitely a self-portrait. I took the one of the snowman on the green lawn, and I started actually painting this like just a straight portrait, and I'm like, no, that is not how I'm feeling at all. That's when
this.
I'm like, everyone thinks I have all my shit together. I'm taking care of my mom. I'm emailing people. I'm creating Zooms for parties with my friends. I'm a mess. I'm a total melting mess. And yeah,
Oh,
that's a self portrait.
you know what? I'm smiling, but I'm not laughing because I love that you are open about this because I feel like if this kind of like triggered that expression, I think it's positive and healthy. Thank you. Because I think it's better to be honest about our feelings that sort of like to go over and kind of like ignore it. So totally makes sense. And you couldn't have picked something that becomes more a metaphor of that state of mind, and of heart, melting and shapeless and not really, so I hope it was liberating in a way of like, being able to actually articulate it visually, at least.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about the work itself. I like more the idea of it, but I do like that I added the snow globes on the mantelpiece.
Okay, well, that's amazing. And so And there's so much of this painting that, there's obviously there's a narrative, and to me, without knowing much about it, it almost feels like it's the reflection, or it's a reflection of the snowman, that it's the true reflection, or the true self. So something tidy and immaculate and perfectly accessorized and pretty and regular in the sense of like curves and stuff, but then the true reflection, or the inner reflection, it's just kind of like a mess, a melting. So in that sense, I just think it's a very strong image. I'm glad that you were able to incorporate one of the images with the narrative, and I think I just give you props for doing that, because it looks like you had fun and then you wanted to take it to the next level.
I actually was, since I've been painting over some old canvases that somebody threw out, and I actually was inspired by the image underneath this that was a woman holding up a mirror. And I originally had the gloves and everything, and I wanted to keep it simple.
I think it's remarkable. I think it's amazing, and so I would just mention a few things, if I may. In regards of, I love the figure on the foreground. I think that's, you nailed it. It's perfect. It does what it's supposed to do, and I just feel I would just kind of like treat the background in a way that would integrate somehow the blue. I don't know if it's this corner, if I would just bring it down, or if I would continue the shelf, but I would possibly try to bring in that, um, either bring the background towards the blue, or specify architecturally if this is sky, or if it's a window or not. So perhaps consider that.
Should I use it in the reflection?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, actually.
Okay. It part of the problem too, Julio, is this was all from imagination and not from an actual thing.
Right.
So it's all just kind of a kid drawing. Then
No, I think that's a challenge, and obviously I want to make sure that I point out how amazing you are in doing this, because it's not easy, and it's good to do it. And so thank you for doing it. And my points are general ideas, because obviously without a visual reference, it's hard sometimes. So I'm just bringing attention, but not in a way that hopefully means that it needs to be quote unquote corrected or fixed. Not at all. Just kind of like, I know the challenge, and maybe just bringing some of the blue here would just balance and counterbalance the blue in the background. Nothing needs to happen. So as far as I'm concerned, these are only notes, and that's it. I would bring some cast shadows on the globes, because they don't feel like they're upright. At first, I thought there were things that were attached to a surface.
Oh, okay.
So I would bring some sort of like cast shadow, or maybe a highlight on the other side. So it looks like it's standing on a surface,
Okay.
in that sense. And yeah, and I would possibly also enlarge some of the facial or the elements. I mean, the eyes are okay, but I would make the hat like much bigger, for example.
Well, the hat is in the background. The hat fell off and is like on the ground. So that's why I made it smaller.
Oh, okay. So it looks like it's balancing off the edge of the amount of.
So I just need to make it give it a hill to be sitting on.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's, again, I mean, I don't know if you heard me say this, but sometimes I look at things on a painting and I have to consider the audience and the silly questions that they're going to ask when they see the painting.
No, yeah. So this gives me an idea. I could put this scarf hanging out there too, and just give it a little hill, and maybe some clouds in the reflection or something. I don't know. I don't know if I want to spend any more time on it. For me, it was more just the idea.
Perfect.
I just was happy to realize, oh yeah, I'm a bit of a mess today.
Okay. Amazing. Perfect. So in that sense, I think it's just brilliant. I love what you did and I love where you went with it. And I just wanted to thank you for doing it because I think it's important sometimes to kind of like step out of the zone and then do something
Well,
radically
thanks
different.
for the assignment, Julio. I was feeling, like I said, I've been a bit of a mess today. I was feeling kind of down, but then hearing all these hilarious stories about snowmen being blown up and a snowman falling in love with the stove, like that couldn't be a worse situation. Right?
Right.
And even the snowman in the history book, I'm wondering if it's a giant marshmallow because it's getting roasted by a stove. It doesn't look like
I
it was.
know, that's a good point because who knows what that was or is actually. Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
But what I like about snowmen is that they're not permanent, and the
Right,
temporary aspect of it is kind of comforting. That we're not all gonna stay like this.
right, right. Yeah, it's true. No, yeah. Yeah, no, I like that as well. It's something ephemeral about it. It's really nice. Very natural in that sense. So like a season. So it feels very part of nature and not permanent. And there's something nice about that fluidity.
Yeah. So thank you for enjoying this painting. Maybe I'll bring it back. I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe.
that's every painting does its function. And sometimes I was talking to someone the other day, sometimes the function is to actually become much more formed. And sometimes it's just like a jumping board for a thought or an emotion, and that's it. And that's it. We don't have to demand the same level of intellectual and physical appearance to every single work we produce. We would go bananas. So I'm glad.
Can I ask you a technical question, Julio?
Yes.
Because I have kind of a silver paint that I use to make it look reflective, but it doesn't. It looks like a painting. It doesn't look like a mirror reflection.
Right.
I'm wondering if there's a little trick I could do with the black and white to make it look like a reflection, or maybe I actually need more of a background. I don't know.
The black and white and on which
On
location?
the mirror, on the mirror.
On the mirror. Um, no, it's just yeah. I think you have to play with the idea of reflecting something that's on the actual other side of the mirror. So
Okay, that
yeah,
you're yeah.
yeah. I would and maybe some kind of like dash of reflection that crosses over background and figure. Maybe just kind of like a
Oh, like a beam of light or something.
right, because what when that happens, it looks like there's a reflective area. When there's a highlight or a dash of light, you may have to look at reflective areas as reference if you want to go there, and then see how that happens.
Okay, I'm looking behind your head at the frame with the light reflection on it behind you.
Oh,
I mean,
right. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I meant. With some kind of like reflection that goes on both sides of something, then that creates the idea of us behind the surface, whether
yeah. Okay, cool. I'm glad I asked.
yes, awesome, perfect. So
Thanks, Julio. Merry
thank you so
Christmas.
much. And really quickly, Lois, I know you're here, and thanks so much. Was your painting came up first, and I just wanted to compliment. It's just extraordinary. This is such a gorgeous, beautiful painting, Lois.
This is an amazing subject. Well, it reminded me of that monolith that kept showing up in the desert, and then also climate change and snowmen and all that stuff. But I have very exciting news. I had to get off because I'm back in the house with the family, and the whole family's here, and we've been waiting for Sunny's college acceptance letters, and she got School of the Art Institute of Chicago came today,
No.
and she got
Oh my gosh.
like tons of money, and they love her and they want her to go there.
Oh my gosh, Lois, this is amazing.
Congratulations, Mama.
I
That
just
is
can't believe
amazing.
it.
It's very thrilling. We're so excited for her. She's not sure she's going to go there, but this is her, it's just so amazing to get that,
Totally.
her. They're like, we love you, we want you, we'll pay you money to come to our school. So
Oh my
Okay.
gosh,
I
the
just,
dream.
I hope, I'm sure she is, because, you know, I have no doubt. I hope she understands the magnitude and significance of this, because, you know, it's not just a regular school, I would say, even though every school is a good school, but come on.
oh, it's such an exciting school because they don't make you pick a discipline. You are not, they don't all of a sudden pigeonhole into a certain you know, place. You can explore all the arts while you're there. And that's what she likes about it a lot. She's been doing film since like 6th grade, and she's known as this filmmaker. And there she, you know, and that's the stuff but they, you know, they saw her, they said, your portfolio, you're this and that, and from kids all over the world. And that's so exciting to get a merit. That's not just a financial aid, that's a merit scholarship based on, you know, they believe in her. So they're so excited.
Oh my gosh, so incredible, lady.
I know.
I'm speechless. I'm really happy for you, and obviously for her as well. But for you, this is so incredible also.
You know, family to get your kid there, and, you know.
It has to be very rewarding. You know, listen, you're a passionate artist that cares about so many things. And I can't even imagine to have your own daughter kind of like have this amazing opportunity. I mean, it's just incredible.
I know, it's such a great opportunity, and I hope I can guide her to, like you said, to understand what it is. You know, when you're young, you don't always understand things. You know, that things don't come that easily.
I mean, I'm pretty sure, and she doesn't have to. I mean, we're talking like old people, but older people, but it's just so it's so difficult, as you know, it's so difficult to have that, you know, it's just requires such an extraordinary effort, and it's just incredible. I mean,
and hearing other kids getting places and not knowing, and it's just all so crazy. And, you know, right now, like, is there even going to be college, you know, next year?
I know, exactly. Yeah.
It's just like a bright spot. You know, yesterday was winter solstice, and things are going to get brighter. I mean, it's going to get darker for sure, and this assignment was fantastic. Deep dives, you know, people need to know the deep dives. You need to do a story of snowmen on the Instagram about what we just talked about, and why this painting class is so much more than a painting class, like what Claire got out of it, you know, the community learning all the stuff. I loved it. It was so fantastic.
Oh, well, coming from you, I think that's amazing. And yeah, we'll do a dog on pony show, even we do it after, because I feel like there's so much good content, and it taps.
I'm gonna give the snowman painting set webinar to some of my friends for the holidays.
Oh, cool.
Right? Do that, right?
Yep. Yeah. So we'll just send you the link, and then upload it. So
I have to run, Sunny. Now I have to take her to the dentist.
Amazing painting. Go.
Thank you. Love you guys.
Hi, Lois. Congratulations.
Have you guys to share my, you know.
Oh, thank you. That was amazing.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Thanks. And then I'm just gonna go really quickly to this lovely Kathy. Thank you so much for joining. I was so happy to see your name. Thanks for working on the image. I love the painting. I think it's extraordinary. I love especially the organization of the background. There's something really cool about what you did with this diagonal. Let me see if I can find the image. I'm going to put it right next to, just to give us an idea of, I think, oh, here we go. Okay, perfect. Yeah, actually, the painting is better than the photograph, if you ask me. Let me see. And okay. So can you hear us, Kathy? Just want to make sure that you are on the other side. You don't have to say anything. So you can just send us a note or just put it in the chat. But
can you hear me now?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay,
Thank you.
good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So thanks. I was just saying thanks so much for joining. I love your painting. I think it's extraordinary, and I was just mentioning that I love what you did with this background. I think that was very important because otherwise it would have been just the snowman or the figure of the snow with texture. But that to me just makes the painting different and original. And I love how you treated it. A beautiful way of bringing neutral tones in a scale almost. And with highs and lows, it just looks beautifully textured and with a strong sense of light. So I really love that area. So in that sense, what I would say, if you want to, some notes that I would incorporate. I love the very strong contrast between the sunlight. It looks like the area is like under the sun, and then you have the shadows. So consider if you wanted to increase that contrast by adding more of a gray area. I know that you like this subtle values of color, and you don't have to do that. But I just feel like what this creates is a very strong contrast between the upright figure and then the background. So I feel like having that strong contrast that takes more than just this line around it will just make the figure look like it's actually upright. Because right now it's so similar to the background that it almost feels like it's drawn on the actual floor, not really upright. So it doesn't have to be that dark. What you could do is using the same notes that you use, for example, right here. I like this scratchy brush stroke. You could just fill it up a little bit more and perhaps a tad dark. It doesn't have to be so strong as it is right here. Also, one of the things, if you want to sort of like incorporate that, but I noticed that oops, oh yeah, I noticed that there is a little bit of the head going over the edge. So that alone, that little effect makes the figure look upright and not almost like tumbled on the ground. So if you wanted to maybe even shave a little bit of that bit of snow and make the path or that diagonal line be behind the head, it will help the figure to kind of like look more peeled away or separated from the ground. Um, I think that would be it because I love how delicate your brushstroke is. Perhaps that area. I know that you incorporated this image on the back, but I don't think you need it. So this could
Yeah.
be faded because everything is so delicate and soft that this is enough. Bringing this creates a little bit of a distraction. I would say you don't need it.
I just did at the last minute.
Yeah, I mean, I understand, and it's good because it's part of the image, but you know, it's on a mound and it's kind of like behind, so there's a little bit of a perspective and volume here. But on the painting, it just feels like a chunk out of the snow.
Yeah.
So I think you're better off kind of like making it all snow and then keeping this delicate.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so since we're turning it into a psych group here, after Claire shared, I feel I've had a difficult time for a long time. And so I feel like this reminds me of, you know, we're like frozen in this time with the fake rock smile. And then there's evidence that people were in her life because there were footprints, but they're not here anymore.
Love it. Oh. That's the painting for me. That's the painting, the footprints. That makes this painting so extraordinary. So thanks for bringing that up.
Thank you.
I think that's extraordinary. And yes, I love that you share that the you know, the forced smile. I think that's also very important. So thanks for sharing that. One more thing also. So I love the fragile. It almost looks like there's you know, they're gonna snap. There's something conceptually interesting about the limbs being so like nothing. So
Helpless.
I would make it even thinner.
Yeah, I didn't have a brush, and I actually, after I saw it, I thought I should have just done it with a marking pen or something, because I didn't have a thin enough brush. Yeah.
Okay. No, I think that what you got, it's perfect, because sometimes when I don't have like small brushes, what I do is I do the lines thick, and then I go in with the paint on the background, and then I'm able to thin it out from the outside of the line.
I'll try
So
that. Yeah.
yeah, if you wanted to. I mean, this looks fantastic, charming, whimsical, adorable, well painted, also interesting in regards of uh, the pictorial aspect of the path, and then the footprints do it for me. It's just like extraordinary. I think that conceptually, there's a footprint, but there's not a person. It's so charged. It's so strong. You know, it makes the figure look or feel even more lonely. You know, there's the absence of humans, and the only thing left is the footprint. It's so sad but beautiful. So
Thank you.
thanks. We miss you.
I know, I got to come more often. I don't know, Fridays, I just forget about it or something. I don't know.
I'll send you some reminders, but yeah, it's always good if you have the time. It's always good. We have a lot of fun, and the paintings are extraordinary. And thanks for your addition to the collection. So if you can work a little bit more on it with those notes, just send me a photo, and then I'll upload it to the folder and give you some more feedback. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And let me do a new refresh. I think there were some notes. This is so good, you guys. I'm so happy we did this, and I can't wait for the paintings to get a little bit more developed. Yeah, I think that's it. I noticed, Hania, that you added or you darkened. That it's looking really good. It's looking really good. It's funny that sometimes to make a portrait like very interesting, we rely on an anthropomorphic shade, because that looks much more impactful and intense than an actual human face or like a real face. There's so much more emotion in it. So interesting. It's just very interesting to see how we can convey narrative and emotion without something that looks like a human, but it's not. So another take that I appreciate with this series of paintings, that it surprises me, because they're supposed to be silly looking mounds of nothing, you know, but in fact they communicate so much emotion. So to me, yeah. And then this is Sarah. Sarah's not here, right? Sarah Jennings, are you here? No, that you had to leave, I think, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
she's not here, right?
But a beautiful incorporation of the background, for example. Love the fact that there's no horizon line and there's nothing urban around it. So I think that's a different take. And also the two figures, you know, almost this idea of parenthood of an adult and a child. And it's just, and I know Sarah has this, she's done it before, and I know that's why she chose the image. And so she has this incorporation of blood in some of her political paintings, or paintings with more political message. So this is like she went full on.
She just came in the room. This is perfect.
Oh, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
Thanks.
Literally just came into the room.
I'm back.
Perfect timing, babe.
Yeah,
Oh
we were just.
I had to be on my work call, so.
No, I'm glad that you came back. Yeah, we just wanted to share your painting with everyone before leaving. And I was just mentioning the differences. Oh, there you are. Thanks for, that's so, I love the hat.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. So thanks for popping in and coming back. So wonderful and perfect timing, because we were just observing the painting and the things that are different, the fact that there's not an urban space behind it. It's all nature. There's no horizon line. It's beautifully cropped. This idea of parenthood, almost, you know, as an adult and a child.
Why I chose it. I thought, you know, I mean, being autobiographical, a lot of the struggles for me during COVID have been interacting with my adult child and trying to keep him from melting while I was melting. It seemed really appropriate.
Wow. I just love that, you guys with the things that you have shared, this is so much more meaningful. Each one of you have brought up a new perspective, and you're making this subject and this series so much more valuable. So thanks for bringing that up. It's just perfect.
Yeah, the point of views in this have been outstanding,
Yeah.
amazing. Unlike most all the other ones, this really is a self-portrait for everyone. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, Julio, snowmen are political.
Right. Who would have thought?
No
This
person.
was something silly, but I feel like it's so deep. And I'm so happy we did it and that you guys joined us and you painted it, because I think this will be a really memorable painting
Mhm, mhm,
that encapsulates so much.
mhm.
But I don't know, I just feel like yeah, it's really meaningful. So thanks for I was pointing, by the way, I was just pointing that in some of your like more political paintings in the past few months, you have used blood
Mhm,
as
mhm.
part of some of the subjects. So I was
Yes.
just pointing that out, that I I thought when you chose it, I almost like smiled because I recognized some blood in that, and I was like,
Uh-huh.
of course you picked that one.
There's so many things about it that I loved, and it seemed random, but not really. I mean, it's imperfect. Everything is off center. It's haphazard. There are no fine lines. Everything seems a little disjointed. I mean, these are all allegories for this year. It's a perfect statement
I
about
think it's just, and
2020.
by the way, going back to the pictorial aspect, the way you painted it, it's fantastic. You put enough without excessively overworking. The color palette is exquisite. The dirty brushstrokes right here, they're just compositionally so beautiful. The path that you created from the background, I'm not even going to bring the figure because I mean the photograph, because it's much more superior. So we can go over details maybe another time in regards of like what to bring forward. But I think from the pictorial point of view, the way it's painted, it's exquisite as it is.
Thank you. I love doing it. I love this assignment so much. I mean, it's a perfect encapsulation for 2020.
I know, right? Yeah, well, thanks so much. And I can wait for you to share maybe another time. Oh, tomorrow we're gonna have like studio time, so maybe we can work. I'll be working on my little Yoda thing. But yeah, maybe we can go into detail about specifics if you want in regards of
Sure. I'd love to.
yeah. All right.
Thanks you
Wonderful.
guys so much. I'm glad
Thank
I could
you.
jump back in.
Awesome. Perfect timing. Thank you,
Bye,
thank you,
you
thank you.
guys.
And I think we're just gonna leave it here. If you haven't, please let us know if you haven't, if you have an image. Okay, I'm just gonna leave it here then. So thank you guys, and I appreciate so much that in such a short notice you guys turned up and joined. It just it's a testament on how much you guys appreciate what we do, but also yeah, how much yeah, you love the session. So thank you for joining. No session on Friday, no nothing also on Thursday. So Thursday and Friday this week we're not going to have anything, but tomorrow we have studio time in case you want to work on some pieces. I will be working on this. I'm going to send an email to everyone. If you have any paintings that you want to work on, studio time sessions are excellent to uh, dive much deeper, and they're more interactive and more specific. And I think people get a lot more from them because of that interaction. And then next week, I am not 100% sure, but I think the session will be on Thursday because next week, New Year's Eve, it could be a little bit different, and I think Thursday could work. So I'm pushing for Thursday, but I won't confirm until the weekend or early in the week. But otherwise, we'll do it on Tuesday also. But it's not going to be Friday. We're going to keep that clear. There're going to be a lot of phone calls, and even though people are not going anywhere, hopefully, but we'll be spending a lot of time. I'm anticipating, talking to people. So anyhow, this surprised me. This was much better than I thought, and I love the conceptual connection. It's a memorable wrapping of 2020 that we will be able to talk about in years to come, and remember this painting as our visual expression to the question, how are you? As Claire said, a mess.
Right.
It was so much more than I even thought it would be, this assignment. Really cool.
Oh, awesome. Yeah,
Great.
thank you. And yeah, Jen, amazing job. Thanks for just picking up all the little nonsense that I just was dropping, and then just you put it together, and I think that
Yeah,
makes
who knew? Amazing.
right. Yeah, it makes the whole experience so much better. So thanks for uploading the images. It's good to see the visual. But yeah, if you guys, I'm gonna read some of the articles, and if you guys, and I'm gonna post a link on the Swiss ritual. I'm gonna post a YouTube video of. It's just I was screaming at the screen and said no. It's like oh, it's so crazy, but anyhow.
I think a ritual for saying goodbye to this year is not a bad idea.
Oh, in fact, I would say, Claire, I was trying to be empathic, and they probably go through such brutal winters that the emotion, the pent up energy of having to go through such brutal winters, it's so big that they're ready to blow anything up. So I totally empathize in that sense. And after what you said, that's probably, it wouldn't be a bad idea. It's like a good version of screaming against the pillow, or on a pillow rather.
Yeah, no, this was really fun. Thank you.
And also in that sense, we hope to see you tomorrow. But if we don't see you tomorrow, let me just take this opportunity to wish you guys a good Thursday and Friday. Merry Christmas. I hope you guys are safe. And we're sending so much love and gratitude. For me, the message is gratitude. We're thankful for you guys to stick with us throughout the year. We're trying the best we can to continue. It's challenging because it's so difficult not to be able to be outside, and we thought we were able to, but now I went hiking the other day, and literally I saw guards, and then they're stopping people from even walking outside. Yeah, I went to Running Canyon. I mean, it's
Really?
and there are guards and certain paths, so it's just serious.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
You can or cannot hike up Running Canyon.
You can, but only with the ramp. You cannot go to the backside. You cannot gather on top. You cannot, they try to avoid narrow areas. So they literally have to pay someone to be there and put yellow tape and tell people not to do it. So it's, yeah, it's just amazing. And then, but yeah, stay safe. And again, gratitude, whatever you do on Thursday and Friday, it's just going to be a day, and then the next day, sometimes I have a hard time going through these days because they're so intense. I look forward to the day after. So whether you feel like that or not, but it's just going to be a day, and then on Saturday things will get back to normal. Whatever
that means. Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, I'll send a link to this, and then much love to you guys, and hopefully I'll see you tomorrow. If not, we'll see you soon.
Okay. Okay, Merry
Bye.
Christmas.
Merry
Bye.
Christmas, guys.
Merry
Thank
Christmas.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Great work, everyone.